I guess, Brendan, firstly, have you had a chance to watch any of that first T20 against Scotland last week?
Look, I saw some of the highlights, no doubt about it. I didn't stay up and watch it live, but I tell you one thing that stood out for me. Geez, it was a small ground, and you can see why Travis Head and the boys cleaned them up massively. But it's good to see actually Australia with a young T20 squad get out there and play. I mean, I know Fraser McGurk didn't spend too much time there, but it's good to see him back in there. We'll see Cooper Connolly, and we'll see a lot of these young guys coming through as well. But gee, it's amazing, isn't it? Travis Head just continues to put runs on the board, excite people right around the world. And I think he's just enjoying his cricket at the moment.
I dug through the archives and I've seen, I think you actually played one game there for Australia A back in the 1990s. Some said, do you remember that match? Do you remember playing that?
Mate, I do. I tell you why. Because we had a streaker run on the ground, and this was an Australia A game. And the guy was so hammered, he'd been drinking all afternoon. Then the rain came in at about 4 o'clock. But look, playing up in Scotland, that's what it's all about. I mean, as a young kid sort of growing up, playing a lot of cricket, playing a lot of league cricket, it's a great way to kick your tour off. We've done it on Ashes tours as well. We've gone to Ireland and Scotland, these type of things. Picturesque ground, obviously very, very small, hard for the bowlers. But it's good to see the locals come out. Yeah, that great pavilion as well. I do remember that. That's one of the standout features as well when you go out and play in these small grounds up north.
This Australian side, as you said, it's a younger squad. There's a few new faces in there. None more so than Cooper Connolly, who we haven't
Mm.
seen a lot of. He started in that Big Bash final last year, but he doesn't have a lot of professional cricket to fall back on. What about him have you seen that's really impressed you? And do you think he's
Well,
ready
well,
internationally?
look, I'm not so sure that he's ready yet. But I think what stands out for me and probably the selectors is he's got that presence in a big game. He's been able to come out for the Scorchers in the final and semi-finals and perform. And I think that's quite a really, really good attribute. And I think that's what the selectors are saying. You know what? There's something special about this kid. Yes, he can play. Yes, he doesn't mind the big moments and he can stand up and do those things as well. So I think this is a great way to blood him in. And a bit like Fraser McGurk, I know he's done it in the BBL a lot more than Cooper Connolly, but it's an opportunity. I think, in the next couple of years for T20 cricket and 50 over cricket, it is an opportunity to phase a lot of young guys in. And I love it how if they perform at the BBL level, then they get the opportunity as well. And that's where I think that's a great thing to look back on, because what you do as a young player is you go, well, I'm performing, but I'm just not getting a look in. And also potential is a big word. I mean, sometimes I hate the word potential because I remember coming up in the young days and, everyone was saying, oh, well, this guy's got potential. We've all got potential. That only gives you so much credit. You've got to get out there and perform as well. So, look, I love it that these young guys can get out there and do it. For someone like Fraser McGurk, I think, in my mind, he's just wasting that opportunity a bit. He's getting out with 3 or 4 balls. I've seen him do it here in Australia as well. He just needs to take a bit more time. He's severely talented, no doubt about that, can play on these big games. But you can't go out and play an international game, whether it's Scotland, England, whoever, and expect to hit it like you do in the BBL. He's got to give himself more time. And if he's only out there for 3 or 4 balls, then he's not giving himself enough time. I don't think he's learning enough. I would love it if he walked out there with 10 balls and he was only 5 or 6 runs. But for him to go to 10 balls, 20 balls, he can mix it with Travis Head. He can mix it with a lot of batsmen out there, but he's just got to give himself a chance. You can see that with Travis Head. I know he's experienced, Travis Head, but when he goes through bad form, Travis Head, it's just because he's not giving himself a bit of time. And I'm only saying 5 to 10 balls. I'm not saying half an hour. So that's why I hope that these young guys get out of it, that they can soak this up and spend a bit more time at the crease.
We obviously saw last summer Jake make his debut at the SCG, and his second or third delivery was flying into the stands of the SCG. Is he just sort of a product of sort of this modern day one day cricket where it is go from ball one, which is obviously very different from a
Yeah,
generation?
yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's that type of generation, but I don't think you need to be a change of generation player to get out there and be successful. Have a look at Steve Smith. He's been out there for a long time. Travis Head has spent time out in the middle as well. Mitch Marsh, Cameron Green, all these players come through, they get dropped, and then they sort of learn a bit more, and then they come back as well. As I said, for Fraser McGurk, yeah, look, there's no doubt he can hit the ball for 6 and hit it over the fence, but a young guy coming through in an international game at the SCG, it's going to come off maybe 1 in 10. It's a bit like a Tim David as well. I mean, Tim David's a bit different because he comes in the middle order, but I'm talking like a Tim David should be batting in the top three in a BBL game. He's good enough to bat there. He doesn't always have to come in at 4 and 5 and face 10 balls. That's where I'm saying that these young players are very talented, but you've got to also work the game out as well. You know, you just can't play a certain way in the BBL cricket and get away with it and expect to get away with international. So that's my point. I just don't think you can get out there in the first over and just go for ball one and go, well, that's my job. That's my natural game. That's what I was told to do. At the end of the day, if he keeps doing that and he keeps missing out, they're not going to pick him. That's just the facts. And then where do you go from there? You go back and then you go, okay, well, next time I get an opportunity, I should sort of, give myself a bit more time and sort of ease into it a bit more. That's all I'm saying.
I guess Australia's next major white ball assignment for the men's side is the Champions Trophy next year, which should be in Pakistan. Considering how well Jake Fraser-McGurk did in that IPL, he really turned heads in
Yeah.
in those subcontinent conditions. Does that make him a lock for that Pakistan series?
Oh,
Just how well he's done?
yeah. Look, I don't know if it's a lock, but it's definitely an opportunity. I mean, you're playing on low, slow pitches that don't have a lot of bounce. I think Fraser McGurk suits that type of player. He's small, he's short, gets underneath the ball, got good hand speed. I think when you're playing against bouncy wickets with a bit of seam on it, like England, Scotland, in Australia, then it's a little bit different. I wouldn't say he's a lock. I would never say anyone's a lock that far out, but certainly he's in the mix. There's no doubt about that. If he just keeps sort of doing what he's doing in domestic cricket and occasionally can perform at that international level, then yeah, no doubt about it. But when you go into Pakistan and those type of pitches, it's going to create a certain type of player, a big power player. He's one of them as well. But where does he fit in the mix in terms of opening the batting? Where does he fit in? There's a lot of other players coming through. Cam Green could start coming into the T20 opening the batting. There's a lot of players that could vie for that top spot. Because let's be realistic, you're batting in the top four in the T20 games. It's the easiest part. The hardest bit's like Tim David and Josh Inglis or whoever coming in that middle order. That's difficult. So there's going to be a lot of batsmen out there vying for that spot.
Looking at the England side, I'm sure you would have seen over the last couple of days, Brendon McCullum's been signed up to now coach the side in all formats. What was your initial reaction to that announcement?
Well, I was very surprised actually because I thought England were definitely going to go down the track of having separate coaches, and I've been a big advocate for that for 10 years. I just think the workload is too much for a coach to come out and do all formats, and I'm surprised that they've done that. No doubt he could perform Brendon McCullum in that role, but I think you've got to make a definite line between Test cricket and one-day cricket. I think you need different selectors, different coaches, different setup because you need to refresh as well. If you're coaching a team right through 12 months, I think players can get stale of a coach. And that's why it's a great opportunity to refresh it. So much cricket going on at the moment. I know Brendon McCullum will want them to play a type of style where the one-day format, the Test match format nearly mould into one. I don't necessarily think that. They've changed and chopped and changed and are using new players a lot in Test cricket and one-day cricket as well. They're really going through the stage where if you're performed and you've played 4 or 5 county games, bang, you can get an opportunity in the Test side. They're really sort of pushing the boundaries on those type of things. And sometimes I think it can work, but I'm not so sure that you can have a coach do all 3 formats.
I guess with Brendon McCullum, when he was first named a couple of years ago as the Test coach, a lot of people thought he would have been a good fit for the one-day team. Considering how he was as a cricketer, despite those workload concerns, he could help build up this England side again, which has had a lean 18 months or so.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think they were just looking for someone to refresh it. Ben Stokes was, I think, a big advocate for him. You've got to make sure that you play a coach or as a captain and coach sort of mix really, really well. And I think that's been probably one aspect that probably got him the gig, along with Josh Butler captaining the T20s and one days as well, that he mixes in really well with Brendon McCullum. So I think that's quite a big feature. I think we see that now in Australia where Pat Cummins and Andrew McDonald have a really good relationship. That flows through to Mitch Marsh and McDonald as well. So I think England and Australia are going down the track of going, you know what, if we have a really good coach that gets on with the players and mixes really well, we could probably, go through a whole summer with it. But I just like the refreshing of different coach up, different matchups with players and those type of things as well.
Do you think Australia could benefit from a similar split? Obviously, McDonald's taken all formats over the last few years. Looking at the congested calendar
Yeah,
ahead, could it suit Australia as well?
Oh, look, I think so. I mean, look, I know we often do that anyway. We often have a coach will come in and do a certain tour, and then they'll drop out, and then another coach will take over as well. I think that should happen. Like I said, I think the players and the coaching setup is great. But as you said, I mean, there's such a long 12 months now. I mean, so much cricket coming on. You need to be refreshed. I think when you bring in different staff, that does it straight away. You're going to bring in a different squad anyway. I mean, you're going to see the Pat Cummins and the Mitch Stark and Maxwell and Staunch and these guys resting out some games and playing in different tournaments as well. So I can't see any reason why you can't do that with the setup with the coaching staff.
Australia's bowling in this upcoming series, a lot of exciting young bowlers. Xavier Bartlett, Spencer
Yep.
Johnson's missed out, but Nathan Ellis is going to be leading the bowling attack. Does this give these guys a bit of an opportunity to push their case for the next T20 World Cups in 2 years' time? Is this sort of the first building block for those guys to hopefully push that spot ahead of the big three?
Yeah, well, it has to be really. I mean, I don't necessarily think you're going to get Mitch Stark. Probably Pat Cummins, no. Hazelwood, maybe. So I don't think those guys are going to be around playing that format of cricket in 2 years' time. You're going to have to use as you said, the Nathan Noah and the Riley Meredith and Spencer Johnson. Lance Morris is one guy that I want to see in there as well. I mean, these guys that are bowling 145, 150, they are match winners, and you have to have match winners in any form of cricket. It's not a matter of being containment. It's not a matter of saying, okay, let's hold a team back. You got to take wickets and you got to score runs. So I want to make sure that, excuse me, that they've got players out there that can, blow a game up, take wickets like a Mitch Stark, and get in there and win games. And we've got to make sure that we always have match winners in our mind, even though they could be expensive on the bowling side of it, like Mitch Stark has been. But he's a match winner, so you're always going to pick him. So you've always got to be looking, I think, for match winners. You're always going to get, the Sean Abbotts and the Nathan Ellis's and Cam Greens that are going to do that work in the middle there and hold teams back. But when push comes to shove and the game's tight and you need wickets to win, then you throw the ball to your match winner. And that's what we've got to keep producing in Australian cricket.
Sean Abbott's an interesting one. He's the leading wicket taker in Big Bash history. He's been incredible for the Sixers for over a decade, but he never seems to be able to cement his spot in that T20 side. What does it take for him to get from that step from a great Big Bash cricketer to a great Australian cricketer? What does he have to do to make that next step?
Well, I think what he's up against is Cam Green and Mitch Marsh. Now, because I don't see him as a frontline bowler, he's a really good first change bowler. For him, you'd have to take his bowling up another gear. He's taken a lot of wickets in Big Bash cricket because he comes in and bowls the tight moments when wickets are needed. So he can bowl the power plays and he can do all the hard stuff. Look, I still think there's a place there for him, but he's coming up against the all rounders. Because if you compare him to, let's say, a Stark, a Riley Meredith, a Pat Cummins, he's not that level, but he's better probably bowler than Cam Green and Mitch Marsh. So he's in that awkward mix. But he's going to be up against the all rounders. But I still think there's a spot there for him. I think his batting has really come on. He's a very, very good fielder in the deep. He's a great team man, and he's got the ability to bowl overs in tight situations. So I always think you need a fixer, and I see him as a fixer. He's the type of guy that sort of go, okay, if that didn't work and this didn't work, then let's go to him. So I still think there's a good role for him.
You mentioned before about England's some of their brave selection calls. You would have seen as well, I'm sure, that Josh Hull, the 20-year-old
Yeah.
left armer, is going to make his debut tonight against Sri Lanka. As a fellow left arm quick, you must hope that he has a pretty decent debut, I'm sure.
Well, it's good, isn't it? I mean, look, as I said before, England are trying this. England are being bold and are picking players out of nowhere, really, that don't have a lot of experience in their test cricket. I think they can do that against Sri Lanka as well. I mean, Sri Lanka are not a powerhouse. So that's a good opportunity to try young players like that as well. Because they know, England, that they can get these players developing against teams that are not strong at the moment, like Sri Lanka, and then come up against Australia, then that gives them a little bit of experience as well. But, yeah, look, I love it. Yeah, you're spot on. I love left armers coming in and swinging the ball because I always think left armers that swing the ball, like Spencer Johnson, Mitch Stark, and all these type of guys, they have the ability to win games. And that's what I love about it as well. I'm looking forward to Joshua Archer back, in this one-day series as well. man, I haven't seen him for ages, and I think a lot of people, would look forward to seeing him as well. And that's what you're talking about. You're trying to develop players that are match winners, then that offer a bit of spark in the side. So yeah, good on England for picking these young guys as well.
I need to check whether Archer's in the ODI squad as well. I know he's in the T20 squad, but
Yeah.
the rivalry of getting Smith versus Archer again, it feels like that's been a few years in the making.
Mate, it has, hasn't it? I mean, yeah, look, I think Steve Smith will open the batting, and hopefully Archer. Maybe they just want to see how he's going and ease him back into it as well. But he's been away for a while, so I think this is probably a good way for him to get back into the side, because you want to see him in an Ashes series too. Don't forget, that's a while away, I know, but I still think he's got plenty in the tank.
This Ashes series is obviously still 14, 16 months away,
Yeah.
but England's starting to build up a pretty interesting pace attack. If Archer's fit, they've got Josh Hull, Mark Wood, a lot of quicks, and it's going to be a very different looking pace attack to what we've seen over the last couple of Ashes tours
Well,
here.
look, at the end of the day, I mean, to me, it's pretty obvious. You got to pick quick bowlers. Guys that are going to be bowling 135, 138 are not going to get it done. You're not going to take enough wickets in Australia. Yes, you may bowl well, you may contain, but if the ball's not swinging, you're in real trouble. Australia have been dominant because they've had quick bowlers that bowl 145. Stark, Hazelwood, and Pat Cummins, and they get it done. And they're tall bowlers as well, so they hit the seam, and it's not easy if you're batting. At the end of the day, you're winning matches because you've got match winners out there, and that's what I keep going back. If we have guys like Lance Morris, Riley Meredith coming through, Spencer Johnson, they've got to keep their pace up. If you're bowling 140 plus, you can take wickets, and that's where I think that's a bonus, and that's why England, to me, they stuff it up so many times, and they don't bring enough quick bowlers out. They bring medium paces that work in England, don't work in Australia. Yes, you've got to be fit as well. They've had problems with their injuries and all that sort of stuff, but guys that bowl 140, 145, 150, those are the guys you want in your side.
I suppose lastly, I'd love to ask a bit about Matt Short as well, who, much like Sean Abbott's been fantastic in the Big Bash. He's been dealing with Adelaide strikers over the last couple of years. But where do you see him best fitting into Australia's T20 side? Is that as an opener or more of a finisher, similar to what
Well,
Stoinis?
it's hard, isn't it? I mean, I see him as an opener. I mean, he does that for the strikers. We've seen that many, many times. He's tall, elegant, got great technique. Yeah, it's just so hard to fit into the side, though. I mean, I see him as an opener. Yes, he's handy with the off spin as well, but can he be a finisher? I don't know. I mean, finishers are like a Tim David. Can he do that? Maybe. I haven't seen enough of him in that situation because I've always seen him at the top of the order. So that's what I keep going back to. I mean, Australia have so many really good options. You've got Cam Green that could open. They're trying Fraser McGurk at the moment. I mean, Inglis, they probably would like him, but he'll probably stay at 4. I just think you can shuffle those guys all the way around. But one of the good things I think with Matt Short in the T20s, and I reckon he could ease into the 50 over game, is that you can pick a side that bats all the way down to 8 and 9 and go hard, and that's what we should be doing in 50 over cricket. We've got enough talent out there for everyone just to go hard. Maxwell will float around that sort of area as well. But Matt Short's he's definitely in the mix. I like him. I mean, he's a proven performer in Big Bash cricket. He deserves his opportunity. Where he fits into the batting order is a really tricky one. In a T20 game, it's a tough one. Maybe they'll give him a crack after Fraser McGurk, and try him there. But I think they'll try some different options.